wireless company. That's why you should check out Pure Talk. Switching over to Pure Talk can save you 50% off your current bill every single month. You could be paying $30 a month for talk, text, and data. Your family could be saving almost $1,000 per year for the same coverage for the same service you have right now. A veteran-owned, proudly American company, Pure Talk does not overcharge their customers to keep shareholders happy. You can switch to their service today in as little as 10 minutes. It's very easy. I've done it myself. Their service is great. They use the same tower network as one of the big guys. Go to puretalk.com, enter code Shapiro to save 50% off your very first month. That's puretalk.com, promo code Shapiro for 50% off your very first month. puretalk.com, promo code Shapiro. Get 50% off your first month. Get started today. Also, they've been struggling to reach those fitness goals where you're at the end of the year, and you're going to be putting on weight around Thanksgiving, around Christmas. Lots of eating coming up. Well, you need to make sure you don't turn into a giant, and this is why you need Echelon Fitness. Folks over at Echelon Fitness have it all worked out. Echelon Fitness is the affordable way to get workout equipment, a workout community, and an instructor's motivation directly in the comfort and privacy of your very own home. Echelon Fitness's connected app provides thousands of live and on-demand classes with great music to keep you moving. You can work out anytime, day or night. I have the Echelon Fitness bike. I've been using it a lot, which is why I look so svelte and chic. Their full range of affordable workout equipment includes stationary bikes, smart rollers, sleek fitness screens, and an auto-folding treadmill. These are all connected to the Echelon Fitness app for the full experience. Around-the-clock classes include full-body workout programs. They'll keep you coming back. One membership covers a family of 5. For a limited time, my audience can get a free bike or rowing machine with a 24-month membership. To get your free bike or rower, text BEN to 818181. That's BEN to 818181. Claim your free bike or rowing machine today. Text BEN to 818181. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Well, Election Day is always the time where we just sit around waiting to find out what exactly is going to happen. And all we can do is sort of speculate as to how this thing is going to come out. There are a couple of different pollsters and analysts who have different analyses of how they think this thing is going to come down. The general widespread perception is that Republicans will likely take both the House and the Senate. The question is going to be the margins. Will Republicans take the House with 30 seats or 25 seats? Will Republicans take the Senate by gaining 1 seat or picking up 4 seats? These are the big questions. Henry Olsen over at the Washington Post is suggesting that he believes that the Republicans are going to end up taking 54 seats in the Senate and 246 seats in the House. 246 seats in the House would be like historic levels of Republican majority. 54 seats in the Senate would give them not only a solid majority, but the possibility of taking a supermajority in 2024. Remember that when it comes to the Senate, because only 1/3 of the Senate is up for election every 2 years, this means that this particular election cycle actually has a bunch of races that do not favor Republicans. There are Republican incumbents who are supposed to be vulnerable in places like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. In Pennsylvania, there wasn't even an incumbent. The incumbent is out, Pat Toomey, and that's why that was an open race. Next time around, there are a lot of vulnerable purple to blue Democratic seats. And so if Republicans end up with 54, there is the possibility that in a 2024 wave election for a Republican for president, if Joe Biden is running again, for example, then this would mean that Republicans have the possibility of having a historically large majority in the Senate. So when it comes to Senate elections, it's not just about this election, it's also about the next election. The same thing is true in the House. If Republicans have a very large majority in the House, then even if they don't do amazing in 2024, they can still maintain their majority in the House. So every election is about a little bit more than just that election. Henry Olsen says that this election is essentially a referendum on President Biden. He says, my predictions are more optimistic for Republicans than most of the other prognosticators. The Cook Political Report, for example, predicts the GOP will win between 12 and 25 House seats. 538's model forecasts the Senate as a dead heat. Those estimates and other underestimate the effects of a political truism. Midterms are always a referendum on the president. Biden is a historically unpopular president. Compared with every other president since World War II, Biden's job approval rating at this point in his tenure is slightly ahead of the approval of only 2 presidents, Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. Since Republicans lost 26 House seats in Reagan's first midterm and 40 in Trump's, that does not bode particularly well for Democrats. He says another reliable predictor is the generic congressional ballot, which measures which party voters plan to support for House seats without mentioning specific candidates. One prominent political science model shows that losing the generic House ballot by 6 points results in, on average, a loss of 26 seats. These 2 indicators show Democrats are in a deep hole because Real Clear Politics' poll average puts Biden's job approval at 42.3%. Even if we round that up to 43% and assume Democrats will exceed that number by 2 points, as presidential parties did in both 2006 and 2014, Democrats would take only 45% of the national House vote, which would be an awful outcome. He says there are 56 House seats seriously in play. How many seats are vulnerable to flip? 14 are Democratic-held seats that Trump won. Republicans hold 12 seats that Biden won. Democrats hold an additional 24 seats that Biden won by 10 points or less, yielding 50 seats below the line. The parties are seriously contesting an additional 6 seats that Biden won by 10 or more. So that means that if you're just looking at Biden plus 10 districts and everything less than that for Democrats, that's 50 seats. Midterm history suggests Republicans will win the overwhelming share of these districts. During the 2010 GOP wave and the 2018 Democratic tsunami, the party not in control of the White House captured between 70 and 80% of similarly vulnerable seats. So Henry Olsen is very bullish on the Republican chances. Meanwhile, Larry Sabato over at the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia suggests that the Republicans are going to net one seat in the Senate. They believe that for some reason, they think that Raphael Warnock will go down to Herschel Walker in Georgia and that Dr. Oz will end up winning in Pennsylvania, but that Catherine Cortez Masto will pull out a close race in Nevada. I think that is very unlikely to happen. I think the Republicans will end up with at least 52. I think 53 or 54. Obviously, that means Blake Masters and Don Balda in New Hampshire. I'm going to go optimistic. I'm going to say the Republicans win 53 to 54 seats here. I'm a little more dicey on Balda just because the polling there, it closed so suddenly and so fast that it's sort of hard to see what's going on in New Hampshire. Arizona, I could see Kerry Lake dragging Blake Masters over the finish line in Arizona. Bottom line here is that, again, it seems betting markets are now suggesting at a 70% clip that Republicans are going to take the Senate. And if you look at the Real Clear Politics poll averages, you can see why. Right now in Pennsylvania, Dr. Oz is up 0.4. Virtually all of the latest polls have Dr. Oz up in Pennsylvania. The question is going to be how much the early voting hurt in Pennsylvania. We'll get to the voting tabulation procedures and what we can expect on actual election night in just a moment. In New Hampshire, Maggie Hassan is up just 1.4 points according to the Real Clear Politics polling average. Now, she is up in 4 of the last 5 polls, but virtually all of them are within the margin of error. This is why, again, I'm not sanguine about taking New Hampshire for the Republicans, why I say 53 as opposed to 54. In Arizona, Blake Masters is actually now up in the Real Clear Politics polling average, which is a shocker. The last 3 polls have Masters either tied or up 1. Now, again, that does not make a huge difference. Essentially, when you're within margin of error, it's a toss-up. But you can see that, for example, Larry Sabato has Nevada going Democrat. I don't see that at all. The last 4 polls in Nevada are Laxalt plus 5, Laxalt plus 2, Laxalt plus 6, Laxalt plus 5. I think Laxalt takes the Nevada Senate seat. And then you see a bunch of seats that were supposed to be vulnerable for Republicans, and they are turning out not to be particularly vulnerable. Ron Johnson in Wisconsin would be one of those seats. Bud in North Carolina was supposed to be one of those seats. Vance in Ohio was supposed to be one of those seats. And those races have really, really opened up. So right now, if you're a Democrat, you got to be freaking out a little bit. And here's the big stat. Hey, obviously, when it comes to the approval rating for Joe Biden, which is very indicative of how parties do in a midterm, they're not good. It's 42, 43%. But among independents, and remember, independents are the ones who are going to decide this election. It's going to be you. You have to get out to vote. Regardless of your party, you should get out. You should vote today. Whoever you want to see win, make sure that you vote today. These elections are too close. These are hair's breadth, extraordinarily close elections. If you look at that Real Clear Politics polling average, you are seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 races minimum in the Senate that are within margin of error in the polls. So these are really, really tight races, and there are a bunch of House races that are also extremely close. There are an extraordinary number of gubernatorial races that are really, really close. Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan is up in the Real Clear Politics polling average by 1 point. 1. Very close race in Arizona, where Kerry Lake is up in the Real Clear Politics polling average by 3.5. Over in Wisconsin, it's a margin of error race for the Wisconsin governorship. So, again, get out and vote. But one of the things that's important to mention here is that independents are going to be the deciders in a lot of these elections. This is what happened both 2016 and 2020 in the presidential. In 2016, late deciding voters broke 2-1 for Trump. In 2020, late deciding voters broke 2-1 for Joe Biden. This time around, independents, who presumably would be the late deciding voters, they really don't like Joe Biden at all. Chuck Todd over at NBC had to wipe away the tears as he announced this fact.
Biden's job approval rating sits at 44% in this final NBC News poll. By the way, all-time low with independents. His approval rating is just 28%. And let me put this in context for you. What does a job rating mean? Some people believe it's the single most important indicator to understand where a midterm election is going. Bill Clinton's 44% job approval rating translated into a 54-seat loss for his party. A 45% job approval rating for President Obama in 2010 translated to 63 lost House seats. 46% for President Trump, 40 House seat loss for his party. So what will 44% give us?
Okay, so one of the big problems for Republicans in terms of defining a wave is the fact that Republicans are actually in very strong position in the House going into the election. By the way, one way that you can tell that Republicans are about to do very well in a lot of these states is what Donald Trump has been doing at his rallies. So remember, Donald Trump tried to run David Perdue against Brian Kemp in the primaries for governor of Georgia, and David Perdue just got walloped. And then Donald Trump yelled at Brian Kemp for like several months there about how terrible Brian Kemp was because Donald Trump didn't win Georgia. Last night, Donald Trump came out and endorsed Brian Kemp for re-election in Georgia. Of course he's going to, because Brian Kemp is going to win by 1,000 points over Stacey Abrams. Okay, so the question becomes, what does a red wave look like? So there are a few things that are worth noting about the red wave. We'll get into the sort of red mirage of all of this and how voting procedures work in just a second, because there are a lot of people on the right who are very much afraid that they're going to go to bed tonight and it's going to look like a red wave, and then tomorrow it's going to look like a red ripple or something because of voting procedures. So we'll talk about, realistically, what voting tabulation looks like in places like Pennsylvania. It is pathetic that many states do not count like Florida. Florida is going to close, and within an hour, you're going to have solid results in Florida because, again, all the absentee ballots as they come in are being tabulated. Everything is tabulated electronically. That means that you get results incredibly fast. There's no reason in a civilized country you cannot have results the same night. But there are procedures in place in these places, and a lot of these procedures suck. So that happens to be real. However, one thing that you can watch from the media is that if Republicans come in anywhere below, say, 40 seats, if they come below 30 seats, then Democrats are going to suggest that it was not a good night for Republicans. This is a lie. Remember, when it comes to the House, Republicans currently hold 212 seats. 212 seats out of 435. What this means is that if you look historically at the size of House majorities for Republicans, there have only 4 times since World War II, and 3 since 2010, but 4 times since World War II, that Republicans have had over 240 seats in the House. They would only have to win about 28 seats to get over 240 seats in the House. So you can see Democrats easily saying, well, you only won 28 seats. Is that really a wave? Normally, look at those stats. Normally, when the president's approval rating is at 44%, you're losing 50 seats or 60 seats. The answer is Republicans outperformed the president on the ballot in 2020, which means that Republicans have a very narrow minority in the House right now. Republicans are not down by 40 seats. Republicans are not down by 30 seats. Republicans are down by 10 seats. And that means the possibility of them picking up a lot of seats is a lot lower. And that means also that it wouldn't take a whole hell of a lot for Republicans to have a historically large majority. If the GOP adds 36 seats, which is less than all of those other quote-unquote wave elections. Remember, in 2010, Republicans picked up like 60 seats, but that's because they went into that election in a horrible position in the House. If you look historically at the House divisions, and you look at 2010, going into the 2010 election, Democrats had 257 seats in the House. So when Republicans picked up 60 seats, they ended up at 242. In order for Republicans to end up at 242 tonight, all they have to do is pick up 30 seats. So the question is not really how many seats you pick up. The question is how many seats you end up with. If Republicans won 36 seats, this would put them at over 247. Republicans would have the largest House majority since 1928 if they pick up 36 seats. So yes, that will be a red wave. So when Kevin McCarthy says, and he was kind of mocked for it yesterday, that if the GOP wins 20 seats, it's a red wave, that's not historically inaccurate, because that would put the Republicans at 232 seats, which is a very, very solid House majority. Realistically, I think that if you want to call it a wave, you have to win over 30. If Republicans win over 30, this puts them in like 242 position, which is back in the position they were after the 2010 election, which was a wave election. There's Kevin McCarthy trying to explain what a red wave constitutes.
Last question.
Yes.
Can you give a prediction for how many seats you think Republicans are going to pick up on Tuesday?
At least enough to win the majority. We're going to fight for every single one possible. Look,
what do you see as a red wave? What will be a red wave on Tuesday night?
We're trying to.
Well, I think anywhere over 20 is a red wave.
There we are.
Okay. So he's giving you a low estimate so that he can claim that there's a red wave, but the real number is above 30 would be a red wave. Above 25 would be like a red tide, and a red wave would be a red tsunami would be like 35 plus. 35 plus seats is a red tsunami. 30 seats plus is a red wave. 25 seats is sort of a tide. Is the best way to think about all of this. Okay. Now again, one of the big issues here is going to be how the independents go. It looks like the independents are going to show up, and it looks like they are going to vote. Turnout is going to be a big part of this. So again, I urge everybody to go out and vote today. One of the things that's really fascinating about this particular election is that if it is a red wave election, if Republicans do show really strong in this election, Democrats are going to do what they usually do. They're going to blame white racism and the evils of white supremacy and all of the rest of this. But that's not going to be the story. Because as we talked about yesterday, the Wall Street Journal has a poll showing that the GOP is getting significant ground with Black and Latino voters. Basically, they're running almost dead even with Latinos. And they're picking up to 17% of the black vote, which is an insane number.
Okay,
Democrats typically draw 90% of the black vote. If Republicans got to 11% of the black vote in prior elections, that was a massive win for them. If Republicans start clocking in at 15 to 20%, Democrats are toast. They have a serious problem on their hands. And all of this is happening, by the way, amidst a simple fact. America is getting more integrated. So what the left would like to suggest is that the country is getting more Republican when it comes to the House and the Senate and maybe the presidency in 2024. As America is getting more segregated, more racist, worse. That's not true. By census data, more Americans are living near people of other races, and as that happens, what's actually happening is that more people are voting Republican. According to the Washington Post, deep in the bowels of the nation's 2020 census lurks a quiet milestone. For the first time in modern American history, most white people live in mixed-race neighborhoods. So it's not that white people are separating themselves off from the rest of the population and voting as a voter bloc. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that white voters are voting kind of typically how they always have, and a lot of minority voters are now living near white voters and not in segregated areas because white racism and because of in-group cohesion. A lot of these things have declined in the United States, and because of that, people are voting more homogeneously population-wide and more heterogeneously inside their own group. What that means is that you can now look at Latinos and they're voting more divided than they would have before. They're not a voter bloc. Hispanics are not a voter bloc. Increasingly, if these stats are right, blacks may not be an ethnic voter bloc. Ethnic voter blocs may become a thing of the past in the United States, which, by the way, would be a wonderful thing. That'd be a great thing. If people stopped voting based on race or ethnicity and instead started voting based on which policies benefit themselves and their families, that'd be a great thing for the United States. It'd be a great thing pretty much everywhere. According to the Washington Post, this marks a tectonic shift from just a generation ago. Back in 1990, 78% of white people lived in predominantly white neighborhoods, where at least 4 out of every 5 people were also white. In the 2020 census, it has plunged to 44%. Only 44% of white Americans live in an area where 4 out of every 5 people were also white. Large pockets of segregation remain, but as America's white population shrinks for the first time, and Hispanic, Asian, Black, and Native Americans fuel the nation's growth, diverse neighborhoods have expanded from urban cores into suburbs that were once colored by a steady stream of white flight from inner cities. Around 9,700, across the 9,700 neighborhoods that became mixed in 2020, white population dropped by about 300,000. Meanwhile, the number of Hispanics jumped by 1.5 million, the largest part of a 4.3 million increase in non-whites in those neighborhoods. Now, what's amazing about all of this is that it's actually not having the impact that Democrats thought it would have. Their suggestion was that as the white population declined in the United States, that the country would become ever more left-wing. That is not what is happening. Instead, it turns out that large swaths of minority voters don't like the woke, equity-based nonsense that Democrats are pushing. The Washington Post acknowledges this demographic shift has scrambled the nation's politics, introducing new groups of often left-leaning voters into typically conservative-dominated, white-dominated enclaves, according to Chris Maggio, a sociologist at the University of Illinois at Chicago's Department of Criminology, Law and Justice. Now, he tries to claim that this is it's causing a backlash, but that's not what the stats are showing. What it's actually showing is that more Hispanics are voting for Republicans than ever before. It's showing that maybe more blacks are voting for Republicans than at any time since the New Deal, depending on whether these stats come in. So that's kind of shocking. And if you look at the share of the population living in mixed-race neighborhoods, it runs the gamut. In Oklahoma, 93% of the population lives in mixed-race neighborhoods. Oklahoma is a deep red state. And it's not as though the deepest red states are the ones that are inherently segregated. That's not right. Some of the places that are the least, some of the places that are the least segregated are the most Republican, and some of the places that are the most segregated are the least Republican. Rhode Island is a very Democratic state. Only 41% of the population lives in mixed-race neighborhoods. Meanwhile, Alabama is deep red, and 58% of the population lives in mixed-race neighborhoods. In Georgia, that number is 67%. In other words, the lie that Democrats told, which is that as the country becomes more diverse and as everybody starts living together with one another, the country would get more Democrat. That's not true. That has not happened. I mean, what has actually happened is that bad Democratic governance is now hitting everybody across the board, to the point that Katy Perry is now endorsing billionaire Democrat Rick Caruso for mayor of L.A. Rick Caruso is not a Democrat. He is running as a Democrat. He is not a Democrat. He was historically a Republican. She shared several photos and a clip on Instagram with her 178 million followers casting a vote for Rick Caruso. Quote, "I'm voting for a myriad of reasons, but in particular because Los Angeles is a hot mess." Well, surprise, surprise, it turns out that bad governance has some consequences. Okay, so meanwhile, let's talk about what to watch for on election night. So how are we going to know whether it's a ripple or a wave or a tsunami or a tide? There are a few different races to watch. So Politico has a good rundown on this. They say that it's worth looking at, for example, Illinois' 17th district. They say that's an open seat in blue territory in northwest Illinois. Biden won that seat by 8 points. Cook Political puts that at D+2. If that goes Republican, that would be an indicator of a red wave. Nebraska's 2nd district would be another good district to watch. It's a Biden 6.4 district. But, again, the GOP represents that area. So if Representative Don Bacon, who is the Republican in that area, wins, then that would suggest that Republicans are holding even in somewhat strong Democratic areas. We'll get to more on this in just one second. First, you know, it's election day. We've got important things to do, but here's the reality. No matter how you vote, you will die. Not like right now, like later. But here is the thing. On that deathbed, you'll be thinking, why was Shapiro talking? Oh, yeah, I should have gotten life insurance. This is where Policy Genius comes in. Policy Genius gives you a smarter way to find and buy the right coverage for you and your family. Policy Genius is built to modernize the life insurance industry. Their technology makes it easy to compare life insurance quotes from top companies and find your lowest price. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $17 per month for $500,000 in coverage. Policy Genius has licensed agents who can help you find options that offer coverage in as little as a week and avoid those unnecessary medical exams. These agents are not incentivized to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. There are no added fees. Your personal information is private. No wonder they have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. Your loved ones deserve a financial safety net. You deserve a smarter way to find and buy it. Head on over to policygenius.com/Shapiro or click the link in the description. Get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you can save. It's really, really important to do this. You got to make sure your family is taken care of in case, God forbid, you plots. Go to policygenius.com/Shapiro. That's policygenius.com/Shapiro. Also, as an Orthodox Jew, Israel is obviously a very important topic to me. It's important to millions of Christians who stand with Israel as well. That's why I partnered with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. The fellowship was founded 40 years ago by a Jewish rabbi in Chicago to build bridges between Christians and Jews by serving the needs of impoverished elderly Jews, many of whom are Holocaust survivors. Today, the organization is the largest humanitarian organization helping the poor not only in Israel, but throughout the former Soviet Union, and especially in Ukraine. The fellowship is doing incredible work inside Ukraine right now to provide food for the elderly, many of whom have nowhere else to turn as the war intensifies and winter closes in. During the recent attack in Kyiv, for example, bombs landed 600 feet from a vulnerable Jewish community that the fellowship served. For $25, you can rush a food box packed with highly nutritious food to Jewish people in need right now. Thanks to this special partnership, every $25 you give will be matched. So you're providing not one, but 2 food boxes that will save Jewish lives in Ukraine. To donate, go to benforthefellowship.org. Please donate today. They do need your help. That's benforthefellowship.org, benforthefellowship.org. Pennsylvania's 8th district is an area with an incumbent Democrat. Trump won that area by 3 points. It's R+4, according to Political. And so if he loses that seat, then that would be an indicator of a red tide. If Abigail Spanberger loses in Virginia 7th, and that one should come in fairly early because Virginia's on the East Coast, then that would be a good indicator that Democrats are about to have a terrible night if Abigail Spanberger gets kicked out. Because Abigail Spanberger is considered a sort of moderate Democrat in a Biden +6 district. And that means that would be a disaster for Democrats if Spanberger were to lose. So those are a few early indicators. Also watch for Florida. Again, Florida results because we count our votes correctly in Florida. It is worth watching what happens in Florida. If Ron DeSantis walks away with a double-digit victory in Florida, it's going to be a super bad night for Democrats. Marco Rubio, right now in the latest election polls, is up anywhere from 6 to 12 points. If Marco Rubio comes back at +10 over Val Demings, bad night for Democrats is on its way. In New York, there are several different races that would be early indicators of whether the Democrats are doing poorly or not, including the governor's race. Now, one thing to watch for, the media are, of course, warning of the quote-unquote red mirage. Now, some of that is exaggerated, right? It's exaggerated because, again, not every state counts votes late or tabulates in the stupid fashion that Pennsylvania tabulates votes. However, it is worth noting that in the 2020 election, Donald Trump declared victory on the night of. The votes had not even been fully tallied yet, not even close. And so you do have to worry about the late mail-in votes. The idea of a red mirage is predicated on the notion that Democrats tend to outweigh Republicans in the mail-in balloting, and that tends to get counted later. So it looks as though the early returns, day of, are Republican, and then the mail-in ballots get counted. And then that seems to turn things a little bit more Democrat. Now, I think that's a little bit exaggerated this year because the mail-in ballots, according to folks who are looking at the stats, the mail-in ballots are not heavily weighing in favor of the Democrats the same way that they did back in 2020. A lot of mail-in ballots are being held Republican. So I don't think the red mirage is going to be as much of a thing. But it is worth noting how votes actually get tabulated in Pennsylvania so you're not surprised by it and you're not taken in by either the left saying that the red mirage is coming or by people who say election night results are in, it's 9 o'clock Eastern time, we know who won, and any change from here on in is obviously voter fraud or people screwing around with the ballot. Here's how the voting gets tabulated in Pennsylvania as sort of an informational note. So there's election night reporting in which teams of county election officials begin tabulating all the eligible votes, including mail-in and absentee ballots at 8:01 p.m. on election day. because of Act 88, most counties must begin canvassing mail-in and absentee ballots at this time. So unlike the state of Florida, which actually starts to tabulate the mail-in and absentee ballots like in the middle of the day, so that you can actually get the results right away, Pennsylvania has an incredibly dumb rule, which is that you're not allowed to even start tabulating the absentee and mail-in ballots until 8:01, until the polls actually close. At 12:01, which is going to be tomorrow morning, counties that received Act 88 funds have to post the unofficial number of absentee ballots and mail-in ballots received. That doesn't mean that all of them have to be counted by that time. So it's 4 hours after the polls close in Pennsylvania, and the counties are still tabulating exactly how those ballots went down, but they're giving you like a general number of ballots. Then the official canvass doesn't happen until November 11th at 9 a.m. That's when each county's Board of Elections has to begin the official canvass and compute the returns of votes cast. The canvass has to continue through November 16th to ensure that the tally includes valid military and overseas ballots received by 5 p.m. on November 15th. So, as we'll see, there's now controversy over exactly what to do with mail-in ballots that, for example, are wrongly dated. How do you know if they're wrongly dated? John Fetterman would like for ballots that have been wrongly dated to be counted. Republicans are like, well, how do we know that those weren't sent after Election Day? The unofficial returns don't happen until 5 p.m. November 15th. So, I'm laying all of this out to suggest that, yes, there will be delays in the process, and yes, it will be annoying, and yes, this all has to get fixed. It is not definitive evidence of quote-unquote voter fraud or screwing around with the vote. If it takes a while to tabulate the ballots, that's literally how the system works in Pennsylvania. Again, that doesn't mean there's no fraud, but you're going to have to show independent evidence of fraud other than it takes a long time to tabulate the ballots. That's how their stupid process works in Pennsylvania, which is why they need to fix their dumbass process in Pennsylvania. It is stupid. There is no reason that any state should be running like this. And there are similar problems, by the way, in Michigan and in Wisconsin. Those are the three states where you tend to have really dumb voting procedures in terms of tabulation, the same way that you do in Pennsylvania. Speaking of which, Pennsylvania Democratic Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman's U.S. Senate campaign filed a lawsuit on Monday against state election officials, arguing mail ballots with either an incorrect or a blank date should in fact be counted in Tuesday's election. Plaintiffs have now asked a federal judge, according to Daily Wire, to order all mail ballots to be counted, regardless of the date voters pen on the envelope. The lawsuit comes a week after the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled officials should set aside and not count mail ballots with an incorrect or empty date. The lawsuit says the date requirement imposes unnecessary hurdles that eligible Pennsylvanians must clear to exercise their most fundamental right. This is stupid. If you can't write a date on a ballot, you shouldn't be voting. It's not that hard. Voting, it turns out, in this country is extraordinarily easy. As in Iraq, circa 2005, where people are braving suicide bombers to go to the ballot box. If you can't write a date on your ballot, you're an idiot and your vote shouldn't be counted. Write a date on your ballot. Seriously, just don't be stupid. How about that? Everyone should have their vote counted as long as it is a properly cast ballot. Cast your ballot properly. Don't be a moron. The lawsuit alleges election officials are rejecting qualified voters who accidentally failed to write the date on their ballot envelope, and more still will be rejected when voters enter an incorrect date, such as their birth date, instead of the date they completed or signed. Why would you write your birthday instead of the date that you signed your ballot on the slot that says signed ballot date? So the fact that the Democrats want to count a bunch of votes that are cast, if not illegally, then at least incorrectly, is a sign of how Democrats wish to confuse the process. Meanwhile, late voting changes in Philadelphia make this even more confusing. This is why you have to have the vote procedures state by state, and it's ridiculous that Pennsylvania has not fixed this after 2020. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, counting Philadelphia's votes will take longer than expected this election. Oh, good. Because if you want to shore up everybody's worried about election integrity, definitely take longer in Philadelphia.
I wasn't even sure I was going on the right goal.
Again, you know everybody's
I
going
just
down the election
myself.
if it starts to materialize looking like an Oz victory, and then all of a sudden Philadelphia's ballots start coming in late. The accusation is going to be that there's somebody in the back room in Philadelphia who is shoveling ballots in. Now, again, accusations are not tantamount to evidence. I say this over and over and over. Evidence is evidence. Accusations and speculation are accusations and speculation. If you wish to actually have people trust your election results, maybe you should shore up the process of how it's done. You adults. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, city officials voted Tuesday morning as polling places opened and the vote count began for the midterm elections to reinstate a time-consuming and labor-intensive process for catching double votes that will slow how quickly they can report results. If Pennsylvania's high-stakes U.S. Senate race is as close as expected, a wait for results out of the state's largest city is sure to shine a national spotlight on Philadelphia, just the way it did in 2020. The city commissioners, the three-member elections board, voted 2-1 to reinstate what is known as poll book reconciliation. That's a means of flagging mail ballots submitted by voters who also voted in person during an emergency 7 a.m. meeting. It was a sudden reversal of a decision they made less than a week ago and came a day after a city judge, responding to a Republican lawsuit, said they could move forward without the process. So, actually, the sole Republican commissioner, voted in favor of the reconciliation, said, I want to be clear that when there are conversations that occur later this evening about whether or not Philadelphia has counted all of their ballots, that the reason some ballots would not be counted is Republicans did target Philadelphia and only Philadelphia to force us to conduct a procedure no other county does. So this is worth noting also. Republicans are like, why is it taking so long? Why can't they just count the ballots in Philadelphia? The answer is Republicans asked for it to take longer to count the ballots in Philadelphia. They asked for it to take longer because they want to make sure that people aren't voting twice. That you voted in person and you sent a mail-in ballot and your ballot doesn't get... Now, again, they have procedures in place generally to catch that sort of thing, but they want to make sure that everything is counted twice before it's actually tabulated. So, when it takes time to get some results from Pennsylvania, just understand that's part of the process. It's a crappy process that needs to be fixed. And meanwhile, the closing election pitch for Democrats, again, is that democracy is at stake. As always, democracy is at stake unless you vote for us and our friends. That is what the New York Times editorial board says. Midterm elections in the United States are often presented as a referendum on the party in power. That message appears to be resonating this fall, but voters need to consider the intentions of the party that hopes to regain power too, and what each vote they cast will mean for the future of this country. 8 Republican senators and 139 Republican representatives sought to overturn the results of the 2020 election on the basis of spurious allegations of voter fraud and other irregularities. We're going to do the January 6th stuff again. And their presence in Congress poses a danger to democracy. Okay, talk to Jamie Raskin, who voted against certification of the election in 2016. There have been multiple Democrats who over the years, in 2004 and 2016, every time a Republican wins, vote against the certification. Are those people a danger to democracy? But, says the New York Times, the greatest danger to election integrity may in fact come from the results of state and local races that will determine who actually conducts the election and counts the votes in 2024. In the weeks that followed the 2020 election, Mr. Trump and his supporters saw their efforts to deny the election results and prove rampant voter fraud thwarted by 2 things. First, their inability to produce credible evidence that fraud occurred, and second, an election infrastructure that was defended by honorable public servants who refused to accept specious claims of wrongdoing. Over the past 2 years, Republicans in dozens of states have tried to dismantle that infrastructure piece by piece, particularly by filling key positions with Trump sympathizers. Okay, but the argument that the New York Times editorial board is making is vote Democrat up and down the ballot in order to stop, presumably, a couple of people running for, like, Arizona Secretary of State who aren't going to count the ballots properly. That is a weak case. That your local congressperson is a threat to democracy is an idea that people are just not going to buy. The New York Times admits that Democrats have largely failed to connect with voters' concerns about inflation and public safety during the campaign season. They've struggled to communicate their tangible achievements. Well, yes, undoubtedly there's more work to be done on these and other issues, but the 2020 elections are an opportunity for Americans to do their part in defending the integrity of American elections. Now, I would find this a lot more convincing if Democrats weren't simultaneously already attempting to warn about voter suppression. The New York Times literally has a piece today claiming that there will be voter suppression in Florida. This is from, it's the Washington Post. The Washington Post has an article, same day as the New York Times, claiming this is all about preserving democracy. Quote, black voters in Florida express fear, confusion as DeSantis election laws kick in. Oh, so you mean if Val Demings loses by 1,000 points to Marco Rubio, it'll probably be because of voter suppression. The same people who are lecturing you about threats to democracy are telling you that if the Democrats lose, not only will be that a threat to democracy in the future, it means that the election was not properly held today. Says the Washington Post, Tuesday will mark the first major election changes in Florida since the legislature pushed through those changes affecting voters voting in the Sunshine State. Voter advocates say the laws disproportionately affect black voters, making it harder for many to vote, and have created an environment of confusion and fear. Voters can deliver ballots for immediate family members, but there are new forms to fill out. And some worry that even a small mistake could result in a fine or an arrest. It is now illegal to turn in more than 2 ballots to a close relative. Well, as it should be. You shouldn't be able to go out and pick up ballots from everybody in the neighborhood. That is an opportunity for voter fraud in action. But, says the Washington Post, this is disincentivizing black voters to go to the polls, and therefore you have to worry about election threats. Meanwhile, Politico has an entire article today titled 6 Election Security Threats to Watch For on Election Day. So now we're worried about voting equipment. I'm not kidding. They say that we have to worry about mis- and disinformation. Lies and conspiracy theories about the security of election systems are what most worry election supervisors and federal cybersecurity and intelligence officials, because those falsehoods can inflame mistrust. Also, by the way, in the same article, they say that there could be serious worries about wireless modems enabling hacks of voting machines or vote tallies. So, Politico already warning about the possibility of actually diebold machines being hacked circa 2004. At least 7 states and Washington, D.C. use wireless modems to transmit unofficial election night results to their central offices. These modems use telecommunications networks that are vulnerable to hackers and malicious actors who could exploit them to tamper with unofficial vote data. So, guys, you have to vote Democrat to preserve democracy. Also, the vote might not be legit. voter suppression, and all of the rest. This is the case that Charles Blow is making also, the aptly named Charles Blow over at the New York Times, because his columns routinely blow. He says that democracy is a threat. He says modern presidential elections don't often end in landslides. In fact, no president has won by a margin of the popular vote greater than 10 percentage points since Ronald Reagan in 1984. These slim margins are obscured by the flaws and peculiarities of our electoral process. But that same fluke means the country's last two Republican presidents were able to win the Electoral College while losing the popular vote. This is all to say we are a cat's whisker away from calamity. From calamity. If the Republicans take the House and the Senate, then that means that we will never have a clean election again. That it'll be the end of the country. As Biden has pointed out, the country is perilously close to installing officials who want to undo and remake it. Want a partial democracy, or none at all. America is one bad election away from being a member. That's their closing pitch. Also, if Republicans...
I just have her.
That's part of the Democratic closing pitch. The other part of the Democratic closing pitch is, of course, that the Republicans are all evil, violent people who attack Pelosi with a hammer. Nancy Pelosi, in highly cynical fashion, actually suggested that.
Oh my god, that's so bad.
This time of year, spend some time outside. Autumn is coming, the weather is getting nice outside. And while you're outside, you need to make sure that your family, your home is taken care of. This is why you need Ring. I've had Ring devices all over my house for a very long time because my home security matters an awful lot to me. With the Ring security products, you can rest easy knowing your home and family are safe when you're not there. The Ring doorbell notifies you when guests or packages arrive. Ring's indoor cameras let you keep an eye on kids and pets while you're away.
I'm on gold
Ring
division.
you any motion detection while the house is empty. Plus, if you add smart lighting around your home, you can turn lights on or off while you are away as well. And I rely on Ring for my own family safety. There's no higher endorsement than that because that's literally the thing I care about most in life. If I trust Ring, you should too. Head on over to ring.com/collections/offers. Find out how you can live a little more stress-free this season with a Ring product that's right for you. They have a whole variety of products that'll help you out. That's ring.com/collections/offers. Once more, ring.com/collections/offers. Ring devices will help make you feel a lot better about your family safety. That's what they do for me. Ring.com/collections/offers.
Fuck, I hate
Well, folks, today everyone has been waiting for is finally upon us, Election Day. We're having one incredible event.
Wait, there's one blue.
2022 coverage begins 3 p.m. Central today and runs
oh,
all the way
I'm blue.
until 11 p.m. Central.
No, I need to score on orange. I need to score on orange.
Big show to be covering all the results as they come in, what it means for the country. Starting at 6 p.m. Central, I will be joined by Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, and Rick Levin, our God King with a lower G, Jeremy Boring, and others to give you the play-by-play. Throughout the night, we'll be giving you live.
No, I am orange. I need to score on blue, right?
Social media meltdowns from the likes of AOC.
Wait, no, there's 2 orange.
Laughter. There will also be some special
So I'm blue, so I need to.
well. Get the election news.
So I need to score on orange.
Expert commentary. Join us. Celebrate the red wave. Yes, I think there will be red wave tonight. If you're not yet a member, go to dailywire.com/men.
What?
Join
Yeah.
us today. Hey, so the Democratic closing pitch is yelling at voters and or saying that Republicans are violent attackers who hit people with hammers. Nancy Pelosi was on CNN last night suggesting that basically Republicans are responsible for an insane nutcase who is a nudist drug abuser hitting her husband in the head with a hammer.
In our democracy, there is one party that is doubting the outcome of the election, feeding that flame, and mocking any violence that happens. That has to stop.
The former President of the United States, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, others have spread stories casting doubt on what happened, fomenting conspiracy theories. What do you have to say to them?
It's really sad for the country. It's really sad for the country
They need
that
more
people
orange.
with that high visibility would separate themselves from the facts and the truth in such a blatant way. It's really sad, and it is traumatizing to those affected by it. They don't care about that, obviously, but it's destructive to the unity.
Your gas is worn off.
But I don't have anything to say to them.
Alright.
We have nothing.
All yours.
There's no common ground to have any conversation.
Okay, listen, I'm actually sympathetic to the idea that people who are putting out theories about how her husband was having gay sex with a easy nudist who hit him in the head with a hammer. I'm sympathetic to her being upset about that.
Yes.
About her husband who just got hit in the head with a hammer.
Yes, beautiful.
What I'm not sympathetic to is the idea that they are destroying unity in the country, as though unity was something that Democrats are seeking.
Okay, I gotta use that boost jump shit more.
That dog ain't gonna
Would you
hurt.
boost and then you
Republicans are all
jump?
at fault for what happened with her husband is not an acceptable
What would you do?
closing pitch.
Or do you
Meanwhile,
jump
Joe
and
Biden
then
is making
boost?
his pitch. He tweeted this out. This is ridiculous. So Joe Biden tweeted, quote,
Wait.
"You don't get to accept
Yeah,
thousands of dollars in pandemic.
Or
And then it's
jump and then
private
boost?
administration
No, boost
for
and then
helping
jump.
working folks.
I think boost and then jump.
And then he fell asleep. I've noticed there's not a lot of video available of Joe Biden over the last couple of days because he's not alive. They just keep not putting him on the campaign trail because he's terrible. That is the stupidest argument in the entire world. That we are not allowed to criticize you spending more money than has ever been spent by any human being in the history of planet Earth.
He was basically doing a 2v1.
We're not allowed to do that because the government forcibly shut down our businesses in 2020,
okay, so it's boost and jump.
and then had to compensate us for shutting down our businesses.
Okay,
that is not the same thing. Sorry, if the government forces me to shut down my business and then says, you must be compensated for that, that is not the same thing as you took out a student loan, you didn't repay it because you got your degree in lesbian dance theory. And now I'm going to repay that loan. It's so sneering and ridiculous, and this is why Joe Biden is a failure. This is why he is not going to have a good night.
One, I'm going to blame both of us because I don't think I screwed up that bad.
When she says that Joe Biden's top priority is working families and helping them create jobs. That is not correct. No one
all yours, bro.
In terms of the president's agenda, I would say look at what he has prioritized over the course of the first 2 years. He has done everything that he can do to help working families. He's going to continue to do that. Significant bill to increase manufacturing here in the United States, the CHIPS and Science Act, which puts us on stronger footing competing with China and has helped contribute to the creation of 700,000 manufacturing jobs, up above the number of manufacturing jobs we had before the pandemic. So if you're wondering what the president's going to do moving forward, look at what he's accomplished so far. You can see his priority is working families, creating jobs, giving them breathing room, and that's what he'll do moving forward.
Nice.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you got it, bro.
And so then they revert to the
this is possible.
Because whenever Joe Biden gets specific, it's a problem. Like Joe Biden over the weekend said that he was going to shut down basically all the coal plants in the country. And Karine Jean-Pierre's like, oh, that was twisted. It was very twisted. It was twisted. You know, it was twisted. It wasn't true. It wasn't twisted, guys. We played the clip of it yesterday.
Briefly to clarify something you mentioned here at the podium. You mentioned about the president's statement or what the president said on Saturday regarding coal. You mentioned a couple times or repeated a couple times today that those words were twisted. So who twisted them? Did Manchin twist them? Did someone else twist them?
It's how it was reported out was being twisted. So and I want to be really clear because this is important. If you read the full transcript, the president was very clear commenting on the fact of economics and technology, as it has been from its earliest days as an energy superpower. America is once again in the midst of an energy transition, and the president is determined to make sure that this transition helps all Americans, and he's been very clear about that.
He has not been clear about
I thought I played pretty good there too.
This is why you are going to lose. And Democrat after Democrat is running a bad final closing pitch. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, for example. Her closing pitch is to use the phrase "people with a period." You want to know why so many voters are ignoring whatever Republican weirdness is and conspiracy theories there are? Maybe the reason is because your mainstream party is saying that women are people with a period. That would be the reason.
Yes, boy.
Bipartisan tax cut will help reduce the economic burden of the cost of menstrual products, especially for lower-income Michiganders. Saving people with a period from paying taxes on up to $4,800 in spending.
People with a period. You're all weird. It's because you're weird. You're being weird. You keep saying weird crap. Latinx. People with a period. That's why you're losing. And then you're like, why don't people think that we're taking inflation seriously? You shut down all the schools for 2 years. You masked children. You tried to force a vax via OSHA on tens of millions of Americans. You spent more money than God. You put equity at the center of all government policy, meaning affirmative action and active discrimination. You decided that transing the kids
that blocking is probably very ineffective. I probably should just ram them.
Probably democracy.
Yeah, in that situation, I just gotta ram it.
Solid closing pitch there. Really, really solid. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing. Now you're not going to want to miss it. We'll be getting into Hunter Biden's laptop, what Republicans are going to investigate if they win with
I should have just rammed them. I don't know why I was going back and forth. I should have just fucking moved their asses just with some momentum. I forgot that all these cars are movable. It's like a fucking toy box. I can just fucking boost into them. I could have, like, skirt. I was just pacing back and forth. I could have just fucking bulldozed their ass. I could have just gone straight. Could have just boosted fucking into their asses. Fucking total their car. These are a bunch of fucking RC vehicles. See? Yeah, forfeit. It's on L, it's a forfeit. It's on L, bro. It's a forfeit. It's not an L. It's not an L, bro. It's a forfeit. Know your vocabulary, bro. Oh no. I knew that was gonna happen. Wait. Is that a hat? Interesting. Okay. What? Okay. No, change the color. Fuck. The color is on my father's side, kinda. Ambi? What fucking color am I? Wait, there's two oranges, so I'm blue, so okay, so shoot on orange. No. Okay. Let me play media. One second, boys.
There's a cart return over there. And there's a cart return over there.
Boys.
But, yep. He decided he didn't want to walk that far. He probably walked out here somehow. And he decided is it a full spot block?
Which one am I again?
Oh, well, no, it's a half cart. That's not where the carts go.
So I'm blue, so I want to shoot.
The cart returned.
Where?
Well, there's one right over there.
On red.
Certainly you passed it on the way out here, right?
No, actually I didn't.
What'd you do? You take a lap around the outside of the store?
I was trying to dodge the mirrors as I was coming through.
So you did?
Red,
You did?
Red,
all right, well,
shoot on red.
would you like to take it back? Instead of leaving it here, blocking part of this spot.
Wait, I'm blue.
Why not?
Yeah, so shoot on red.
So I could get in there.
Yeah.
But you ain't. Why not? This is yours, though.
I'm blue.
Next person that pulls in here is a little bit harder for them to pull in.
The one time I don't ever return one.
I feel like you want to. Do you want to do?
Halfway, but I don't need my wife.
Oh, what's she? Is she completing brain surgery or something?
No, she's going to...
Well, so she's not in any hurry. Would she rather live with a responsible, upstanding man?
You got a board sticker?
No, well, it's a lazy bones on board sticker.
Oh.
You don't want this, sir.
No, I don't.
You'd rather return your car, wouldn't you?
You do it.
That sounded like a statement, not a polite question.
That was more matter of fact.
That's right, but that's not my job to do it. My job is to shame lazy bones.
Who do you work for?
The Cart Narcs. We're a highly independent, sexy group of professional agents who help folks do the right thing.
I'll tell you what, after 40 years worth of retail grocery, I have earned...
No, you have not! Oh, you're getting it. You're getting it. What's going on?
Put it on, I don't care. Throw it away.
That's number one, not very nice. And number two, you're not going to learn your lesson. And then you'll be a bad person, or a worse person, I should say.
You have no idea who I am.
That's the point. I know, but I know what you do. We are the summation of our acts, are we not?
One thing.
One thing what?
One thing.
One thing what? You did one thing?
It's only one thing.
But that's the whole thing, is the bigger parts of our lives are made of all the little things, are they not?
You have no idea how much money I give away.
Oh, well, okay. That's great. That has nothing to do with this. This is a
bad person either.
But, okay, I'm not saying you're an all bad person. I'm saying you did a bad thing, and you have a chance to redeem yourself.
You put me on the internet, too, if you want.
Well, that's no good. You don't want to be known for that. Sir?
I don't care.
That's the problem with the world, isn't it? All right, you're getting it.
Thank you.
No, not thank you. Yeah. Oh, it fell off. Dang it. Dang it. Oh, he's laughing. What an evil lazy boss. Hold on. We're going to do Narcoteers. A couple things. Return this card where it belongs. And very identifiable and easy to spot car or Jeep. So, like he said, he managed to string it through over this way, going through spots, avoid, like he said, dodging mirrors. Oh, or, look at this. Perfectly open spot. You don't have to dodge anything.
What the fuck's with my video?
And as you all will know, the amount of time he argued and claimed he gave money, which again, that's great, but it doesn't deal with the problem at hand. And look at that, Narcoteers. Happens all the time. I'm just sad we were not able to catch this person in the act. Not in the act of doing anything terrible, although this was not the proper card return. The card should be over here, not in the side of it, even as a sign says please return type cards here. It's this lady who has left her wallet. She's apparently a big Disney fan, which is a thing for an adult woman to be, I suppose. And that's what we're going to do. You can see it was from the, there's two lots here. Wholesale club there, and the grocery store there. And this is the
Coke. Totally out of juice.
Give this to customer service over here, because we got to imagine that's where she'll be coming back to first thing. When she realizes she lost her wallet.
Alright, can you forfeit, please?
But again, maybe, we don't know, if she put that card in the proper side of the shopping cart return, very small, small difference, but it makes a difference. When you're doing little things in life, you tend not to overlook little things like, oh, I don't know, getting your cool Mickey Mouse wallet lost. So, the reason why you should have the cart narcs in your lot, because we are a force for good.
Impossible.
Who knows if the next Lazy Bone had seen that? Well, Lazy Bone wouldn't be the shopping cart return, but just wandering by perhaps. And who knows if they would be the honest, responsible citizen that us cart narcs are. Oh, he's...
The boy that works kids in front of us.
You doing okay, ma'am?
Hello.
How are you? Now you're idling in the fire lane.
Yeah.
My wife come out. But that doesn't mean you can just stay hanging out in the fire lane. Sir, you may have noticed that my magnet fell off. Lazy Bone's on board. Right. Can I go on the hood? Would that be easier?
No. I'll put it on my car.
There it is. It doesn't really stick.
Take them right up.
That's unfortunate.
Then I'll tell them you're the one that's wiggling.
Well, that's not true necessarily. Or you could take it into your heart and say, hey, I'm going to be a good guy today. I may have given money in the past to charitable organizations, and that's great. But they're like, do you flush the toilet every time you use it? No, exactly. You can't just flush it once and say, oh, I'm done flushing for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? All right, well, hopefully, think about it. Hopefully your wife is a better influence on you than everything else. I'm going to take care of it. What do you mean?
This is just fucking brutal.
Well, I said that you didn't take your card back. And I asked if you pooped in and didn't flush toilets. What's wrong with that? Well, that's the whole point. When you leave a card out, you're disrespecting the next person who wants to park in that spot.
Yeah, come on, double digits. Bro, come on, triple digits. Triple digits. I dare you. I triple dog dare you. I triple digit dog dare you.
Employee at the cart narcs. Nobody. Sir, that's the whole point. Is we're all nobodies in this world, but we'd be a little kinder to each other. Right? Well, I'm not going to do that until you take your cart back, or promise that you'll do it next time and be nice about it. I'm going to go take care of this cart because your cart's already been taken back, thanks to me, in my nice way. So I'm going to take care of this. I have a feeling he's just going to kind of... I think this is what they call, and again, not a psychologist professionally, cognitive dissonance, where the more I kind of laid out the situation for him there, that you can see he was kind of stewing. The laughter and joviality that he had earlier has left his face. They think it's kind of, well, if I am this good guy, why am I doing this bad thing? And why am I not listening to excellent reasonable arguments about why I should do this good thing instead of my bad thing? Yeah, how's it going? Would you like a sticker, sir? Yes, way.
Dude, it's awesome. I watch your videos.
How are you doing, sir?
That's so cool. I told my girlfriend I wish you'd come here.
Well, here I am. What's your name?
My name's James.
James, nice to meet you. Sebastian. Agent Sebastian. I gotta go talk to this guy. I think he just got out to remove his magnet. Let's go see him have a conversation. Be like James. Be like his girlfriend. Not like man loitering. Where'd he go? Let's see. I don't know if he's gonna want to have a follow-up conversation. How's it going? Oh, no, you removed the magnet. Oh, it's on the ground underneath your Jeep. That's not where it goes. Would you like it? Would you drop it by accident, perhaps?
This is pathetic on their part. I mean, and on mine,
You maybe
too.
moved it.
Just equally pathetic.
Shuriken version. Just has lazy bones and it's got like a cool ninja. Well, that's the whole point. Is you can just like.
Last time I'm gonna tell you.
Then what do you
It
do?
is
Take your
pathetic
card
how
back?
many times.
Are you?
Wait, it's literally a
Well, see, that's not how the law works, sir. I'm clearly not being threatening to you. I'm being polite.
Subject.
No, it's not subject. The law is what a reasonable person would do. That is not the law, sir.
I'll leave it at 13.
You're being
You're
being irrational
think
and
I want to let them get to
conversation.
14.
Yes, you are, sir.
Yeah, I don't think I want to let them get to 14. I might change my mind, but I don't think so.
I can still have a conversation.
I really don't think I want to let them get to 14.
Sir, it's just a Jeep. It's not life and death.
Yeah.
Well, first off, it's not a damaging thing I'm doing. Number one, it's a nice Jeep. I'm going to give you that. Here's what I'll do. Can I go on the other side?
I really don't want them to get to 14, bitch. You can't get to 14 because I said so. You fucking suckers, bastard ass bitches.
I'm sorry? He's pointing his cell phone at us. Not gonna. Not until you take your car back.
Bitch ass bastard.
I'm gonna stand a reasonable distance away. How's it going, guys? Honestly, I'm not a threat, even though, your lawyers and your district attorney types, if you could argue, like, I'm going to shoot you. We hear this a lot, argument, where people will say, well, I feel threatened. Well, first off, no, you don't. That's not how the law works. Where's he going? It's not whether you lie about feeling threatened, Narcoteers. I'm going to pick up his litter while we're here. It's whether a reasonable person would fear imminent violence and danger, the threat to their life. So, not only lazy bones, liar bones, bad example for all responsible gun owners. And by the way, that was a fake out in case you guys didn't notice there. I double faked him out. I pointed to it like it was still there. So he fell for that. He was not, in case you were curious and you couldn't see through his windshield, he was not pointing a pistol at us. Oh, there's his wife. He's picking her up. He was just pointing his cell phone. So an idle threat at that, which is par for the course for lazy bones. That turned out to be a much longer interaction than I considered it was going to be. Usually when they kind of, you know this from watching our great videos, Narcoteers, usually when they're kind of laughing like that, typically they go, oh, shucks, you're right, I'm sorry, I was just being lazy. Now, this guy did not. This goes back to they're leaving. This goes back to the warehouse store, so I'm going to bring it there. So, interesting little slice of life, Narcoteers. From that man and his terrible example that he's setting for the rest of the world. But don't be like him. Be like everyone else. He does the right thing. That's kind of what cart narcs are all about. Cart narcs out.
This is like the blind leading the blind. Oh no. Holy fuck. Yeah, okay, that's unacceptable. Ain't never even been. I'm about to sing. I can show you something hidden deep within. You drive me too much. You drive me too much. I can show you, but I can't taste. On my face, close hands on your waist. Make this mistakes. Take it further. Love me, till you know me. Keep it on the low key. Give me please. I can't let you hold me. I'm slowly walking down the street. With your promise on me, brother on me. I am coming for your soul if you hold me. And you know there's people that I don't need. I can hold you, show you how it goes through. So I can show you, but I can't change it. Snow on my face, cold hands on your waist. Make no mistakes, fake it's called love. Got you 22 times to your heart now. I can show you, but I can't change. Snow on my face, cold hands on your waist. Make no mistakes, fake it's called love. Got you 22 times to your heart now. I can show you, but I can't change. Snow on my face, cold hands on your waist. Take me. No. 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 But I can't. Come on, bro. I'm lonely, keep it on the low key. Give me please, I can't let you hold me. God slowly walking down the You got this, baby. With your promise on me, brother on me. For your soul if you hold me. And you know there's people that I don't need. I can show you how it goes through. Show you how it goes through. But I can't change it. Snow on my face, cold hands on your waist. Make no mistakes, fake it's called love. Got you 22 times to your heart now. I can show you, but I can't change. Snow on my face, cold hands on your waist. Oh, there's lag. Who the fuck is the free internet? Come on, boys. Where's the free internet? Come on, someone's... Alright, I have faith in you, teammate. We got this. Just takes me a second to get my sea legs back, you know? There we go. Plays. Yeah, there's lag. Holy shit. There's fucking physics where I can't even... Oh my god, no. The fucking... It's like calculate the lag into the fucking physics equation, bro. It's like, god damn. Don't do it. There you go, I told you not to do it. Good job, thank you for listening to me. Yes, nice. Wait, no, wrong goal, fuck. Wait, what? Wait, was it I think I was on a different team? Wait, fuck. Oh, I'm supposed to be shooting on blue. Oh yeah, I explained it. Oh god. Forfeit, bro, come on. This fucking poor, you soulless. Oh wait. King? Why is it red, but it's fucking... Oh wait. King?
Is college a scam? Y'all know I taught some college, so I have a pretty strong opinion on that one. We'll see. Gender activism. What about puberty blockers for kids? Good or bad? Abortion. Let's dig into that a little bit. All the controversial topics are on the table, and I am going to do it with a very, very, very special guest who is in the house. I was about to call by the wrong name, but I got it right. Stephen Bonnell is here, also known as Destiny. Destiny is the name that made you famous, though, I have to say. So if I said Stephen Bonnell, people might be like, who?
They'll know who I am.
They'll know who you are. Why Destiny? Before we even dig into topics, why did you decide, and why do so many people in the YouTube space have an alternate name that they use? Do you know why?
Well, I mean, a lot of us kind of grew up like on the internet playing video games and stuff, and you're not going to put your real name as a video game name. So I'm lucky that I kind of aired on it's just like a noun, Destiny. It's kind of funny, but like some people are like, like XXX Child Slayer, XX, like right. At least I don't have like a name like that. Like, Darth Lord Murderer, 69 is here to talk in the studio. I don't have to.
Although that would be an interesting intro, I have to say.
Yeah.
So bring that in. So we're going to get into a little bit of everything today, and I wound up, pulling some clips of you on other shows to kind of intro the conversation.
Ambush me on the show? Okay,
well, I think it's cool to. No, I mean, I think it's interesting to hear what you've said, and then sometimes you being able to contextualize it in person creates a more interesting conversation, because a lot of people watch these little clips and then they develop a perception. But I love having the person to say, this is actually what I meant, or that's 100% what I meant, or
gotcha.
Whatever. And we're going to talk about some politics too. Quick question before we get into any of this stuff. And we're going to start with Andrew Tate, Chad. I know you're excited about that. But politically, because we will get into politics, how do you define yourself politically? Do you label yourself as...
On this show, I'm going to be very far left.
Okay, so but would you align yourself with, would you say I'm far left if someone asked you?
Depends on who's asking. The political spectrums on the internet and in real life are kind of very skewed today. So if I'm in like a conservative audience or like a real life center-right audience or center audience, I'm probably going to be pretty far left. If I'm on the internet, I'm anything from center left to fascist. It just depends on who I'm talking to, because like I'm not a communist, I'm not a socialist. I'm very much like an avowed capitalist. But I believe I love big government, I love big pharma, I love education, and all of that stuff. So I guess like under Bush, I would have been like a far left Democrat. But today I'm
so you like the bigs. You're a liberal
all
who likes
bigs.
all the bigs.
Yeah. So when you talk about like big pharma, big education, I love all of those things.
Oh, awesome! Because those are the things that I daily rally against. That's the system as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm here to defend them.
I'm here to take them out.
Okay, gotcha.
That's my. Right. If I take out the bigs, and by that I mean big government, big pharma, in large part some of what big tech does, I think that I'm helping to create a better country. So we'll definitely have some clashes there. But I love that. I love that description. Oftentimes I'll ask people politically, like, who do you align yourself with? Sometimes I feel like that's a good indicator. If they say an AOC or a Bernie Sanders, that's very different from a more moderate Democrat. If they say a John McCain type, as opposed to, I don't know, a Ted Cruz, I feel like that gives some people a context. Is there any politician that, for example, you get to have your pick and we're not going to start with politics, but you get to have your pick who runs in the next election? Is there someone that you're thinking, that's the guy, that's the lady?
Okay, I'm internet brain, so everything you tell me, I'm going to over-qualify everything. So if that gets annoying, just let me know. So in terms of who would win political strategy, it has to be Biden has to run again. You don't want to lose the incumbent advantage.
He's not running again.
He's absolutely going to run again. He's going to run and win again. Oh, man. Absolutely
Destiny, he doesn't even know. I called you Destiny. I know I'm so surprised. He doesn't even know who he is or where he is most of the time.
He's still got like 10 times more legislation passed in 2 years than Trump did his entire 4 years in office. Isn't that crazy?
Oh,
my goodness.
He's not running. We're going to get into
politics.
But is there someone that you...
I like... Problem is that like I have some like I was born and raised in Nebraska, Omaha. Okay. So I'm a little bit I don't want to say all over the place in positions. Like I align with a lot of the Biden-Harris agenda. I like a lot of what they're doing, but there are some things that I don't like. For instance, I'm not a big fan of a lot of like gun control stuff. Something I'm very critical about Trump about for passing more gun control legislation than almost any politician in the past 20 or 30 years has. So gun control stuff is something I'm not a big fan of. The education stuff I'm kind of like iffy on. But for the most part, I like the government spending related to green energy. I like the infrastructure bill. I like the foreign
policy, all of that.
Tax policy, yep.
Okay, interesting. All right, I'm curious to see what you'll say on some of these political topics. I want to start with, and by the way, the chat, please get lively, get feisty. If you agree with me, great. If you don't, you hate what I'm saying, you agree with Steven, great, chime in. Tyler's here. Top G is in the house. He's back. You know I was going to embarrass you. Tyler's here. He's going to be checking in with you. Hit that subscribe button and hit that like button as you go along to let us know if you like the spicy. You know you can count on me for the spicy. Let's start with Andrew Tate. So we have a clip. I believe this was from Fresh and Fit that I saw this, where you were talking about whether Andrew Tate is good for men. Mm-hmm. I want to pull just a little bit of it and then have a larger conversation about that, because he's a very influential figure. Mm-hmm. Love him or hate him, he's making a big impact. So Let's take a listen.
For the guys or not, in your opinion, and why?
I'd say absolutely not.
Why is that?
I think that the idea of masculinity and success and fulfillment that's being sold by a lot of people on the right, I think leads to the same type of spiritual wasteland that you're trying to pull these young men out of, I would say. Like when I look at somebody like Andrew Tate, or even for you guys, and anybody that talks about red pill stuff, it always feels like your big markers for success are how many women can you get, how much money can you make, what kind of cars do you drive. And at the end of the day, I don't know how old you guys are, but when I think back to the things I've had in my life, I don't remember the third, new iPhone I got. I don't remember when I got my new car, how it was cool for a week, but there are memories that you make with other people. There are things that you achieve.
We can stop it there. Okay. So that's interesting to me, that commentary. So I myself when I look at Andrew Tate and a lot of what he's saying, I myself am not interested in the fancy cars. That doesn't appeal to me, right? I always joke that I sold all of my designer clothes when I left Network, but I spend money on other things. I order my food directly from farms, etc. What I hear in their messaging is
that was my
money
fault.
is freedom. Money is the power to build the life you want for yourself. So, yeah, they may choose to spend it on cars. They may choose to spend it on homes. They may get a little bit flashy with that at times. Some of them, not all. But to me, that means build a life where you have the freedom to have mobility, your businesses get locked down in New York or California during the lockdown. You can pick up. You can go somewhere else because you have the financial means to do it. So I see it less as showy and more like money is power. That's just a reality. So get yourself some. And to me, that's a smart message.
The issue that I have is they don't ever talk about what to do after you've got the thing. And that's kind of the thing that worries me. So, for instance, if you go to a lot of these red pill communities, a lot of them will tell you how to get girls, but they don't tell you how to maintain a relationship. A lot of them will tell you kind of how to get money, but they don't tell you what's a wise way to spend it. It's always kind of the same. This nebulous get a lot of money and then invest in real estate, whatever that means. Which I don't even know how available that is to the average person. Or get a lot of money using weird stuff like crypto, or this drop shipping, whatever kind of online stuff. Or it's really important to get a lot of money, but colleges for losers don't do that, which is the most reliable way to build a career and get money.
We're going to guess college, because I also, by the way, taught college. I think it's an enormous scam in large part.
Oh my gosh, I love college. So that'll be a great, that'll be a great discussion too. So yeah, that's always kind of my issue. Is that on one end they'll say, well, money is freedom, and represents the ability to do whatever you want. Okay, well, do what? I feel like I don't see these. I don't get all these videos of these red pill guys where it's I've got a lot of money and it's really cool because now I can take both my kids on vacation twice a year. That's really fun. Or I've got a lot of money, so I only have to work 4 days a week, and on the 5th day a week I do this. I go hiking with a girlfriend or something. Sometimes I wonder if there's kind of a bait and switch that happens, because whenever I watch these guys on their platforms, whenever I look at their audiences and I see what they're typing, all of it seems to be highly materialistic. It is incredibly material driven. But then when I get on their shows and I push them a little bit, they're like, oh, okay, well, it's not all about the money. You just get the money for freedom. But then when I take a step back and I'm not there anymore, I'm looking at what they're doing. They're posting stories with new cars. They're posting fabulous vacation spots. It's all of the hyper materialistic stuff that conservatives used to be critical of. And I guess liberals are still critical of, depending on who you're talking to. So yeah, I guess that's my issue with it. If they push the message, you don't care about what.
I don't care if they to me, it's not. I don't care. You want to be materialistic, fine. What I do care about is a society that's self-empowered to get money for mobility and for personal responsibility and building your own life. So I don't care if they prioritize. If Andrew Tate decides that he wants to prioritize materialistic possessions, I don't even know if that's true. But I do have seen photos of him in front of the fancy cars, or I'll see, his brother I follow on Instagram, and I'll see, stories that clearly portray a luxurious lifestyle. To me, though, for the average person's looking at that and saying, well, hell yeah, if I have the option to not have that stuff or to have that stuff, yeah, I'd want it. Maybe I wouldn't buy that car. Maybe I wouldn't buy that house. But I want the option and the opportunity to get there. And that's what, to me, a lot of that messaging is about opportunity. It's go out and make your money. Be financially stable. Be financially secure so you can build whatever beautiful life you want for yourself. This is what mine looks like. Yours doesn't have to look like that, but it can be incredible because money does buy power and influence and mobility. And that's just a reality of dealing with the modern world.
None of those things are happiness, though. None of those things are fulfillment. I think this is the issue that I have. If Andrew Tate wants to do his individual stuff with money, that's fine. But we're not talking about what he does. We're talking about the message he preaches, right? And in a way, we're all in this kind of arena of ideas with our own messages competing with other people. So here's the issue that I have with Andrew Tate's message. My mom came over from Cuba, I think, when she was 4 or 5 years old. So half of my family is Hispanic. I have a lot of family that live in like Hialeah, kind of like these poor sections of Miami. And I have watched firsthand, I love them to death, but I've watched my parents fall into like the American dream trap, which is this idea of like getting bigger houses, getting more cars, where you make a little bit more money, you spend a little bit more money, you get a raise, you get a new bill. Everything you're doing is pushing the boundaries of what it means to be happy. Mm-hmm. And when I look at where all of my family is and all the different types of family members that I spent time with, if I go to my very, I don't know if I call it my white or my American side of my family, when I go over here and I visit these people, they have massive, beautiful houses. They've got 2 or 3 cars in the front. Both of my parents started collecting Social Security early. My dad works full-time, despite the fact that he has a full Air Force pension, despite the fact that he's getting paid out disability. He can't lift his arm that well. And he still works full-time at, I think, 62 years old to be able to afford their lifestyle. They're going to work until they die. When I look at I've got another family member, I guess I don't want to name too many names. So, like, she, full NYPD retired, doesn't work anymore, or I'm sorry, full NYPD retired, doesn't need to work anymore, but she does, full-time job at Home Depot, maintaining her massive, luxurious mansion with her 2 cars. They have their stuff. They're not very happy, and I can see that when I visit them. It's very obvious. They're always juggling bills. They're always stressed about this and that, and I know that somebody might be listening and think, well, if they just had more money, they'd be okay. And it's like, they have plenty of money. They just spend all of it on everything because they're stuck in this like hedonistic, like hyper consumerist treadmill of if I can just buy the next thing, that's going to give me the amount of happiness I need. And then I think back to my very shitty, poor Hispanic family that lived in Hialeah, and these people have apartments that everything has to be 3 inches off the floor because when it would rain, they would all flood. I remember my grandma chasing cockroaches around with her slippers. But like these people will, Friday, Saturday, they all get together in somebody's like very shitty small apartment. They're all cooking, they're having fun, they're laughing, everybody's catching up with family. And these people are living and loving life. And I wish that there was like a balance there. Like, I agree, I've grown up and I've made a lot of money at this point. I don't ever want to live in a shitty apartment where I've got to put my TV up off the floor. Otherwise, it's going to short circuit when it rains. I don't want to do that. But I also don't like the selling of the idea that everybody has to be hustling and grinding their whole, 20s and 30s away just so that they can, buy big cars, because that's not happiness either.
So you're talking about happiness, and what I'm hearing you say are things like, what I hear from that is simplicity. You talked about the side of your family that doesn't have a lot of money. And there's a simplicity to that life that can be very easier in many ways and less stressful in many ways. However, what I'm hearing more than anything is community. So this sense of community, oftentimes when you're in the grind and you're singularly focused on buying the next thing or exclusively on paying bills, you're not being part of community. Yep. You're not spending time with family and friends. Your mind almost can go insane just in getting the next big thing. But the interesting thing about it is that Andrew Tate and a lot of his crew, one of the key things they talk about is brotherhood. They're very passionate about those, keeping your circle small, but people you can really trust, and spending time with other men who could build each other up and working out. And what I hear from them that's very appealing, I actually think that he's been, even though I don't agree with everything that comes out of his mouth, I think he's been really good for men because, one, he says what he thinks. End of story. You don't like it, too bad. I think we need more people in this world, particularly strong men who are unwilling to compromise on what they stand for to please modern media, modern feminism, whatever it may be. But also, I think it's a very self-empowered message of like, get your shit together, get to the gym, get in shape, be responsible for your own mental health. Don't rely on prescription drugs. Get off of pornography. Don't utilize that as an outlet. It's going to be unhealthy. It's going to send you down a ditch. All of this stuff to me is a very empowering message for young men to hear. For me, I didn't grow up with money. I grew up in a small condo behind the Staten Island Mall. I used to joke that if you opened our windows in the summer, you would just smell the dump. It was literally like right behind the Staten Island dump. My parents worked. It was very small. It was 2 bedrooms, but tiny. My parents worked very hard to pay that mortgage. Maybe we got a vacation a year if we really, saved up for it. And what I learned from that experience was that money was freedom. So I love the idea that these guys are telling you hustle because it will make a difference. And if you saw during the lockdowns in particular, the people who had financial means had mobility. they were able to pick up and go. If they lost their business, they were able to restart it somewhere else. So I think this it's somewhat diluted to say, you can say that people who are poor can be happy because they find fulfillment in other areas. But if you offered those people the ability to climb a ladder to have that happiness, but also strike a balance with some financial stability and success to get them out of poverty, they would absolutely jump on it 100%. So why can't we strike a balance? Why can't we have financial success and stability because it's realistic? And at the same time, remember that community is important and has value and don't lose sight of them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. That's kind of
2 minutes.
Like, I wish there was like a middle ground too. It feels like Tate's messaging is pushed a bit since he's gotten kicked off of everything, I guess. And what I've heard him say recently has been generally positive, although it's hard because it always depends on which clips you see and which videos you watch, because obviously the context of the message is very video. But like, even when you talk about like building relationships with brothers and having camaraderie with men, almost sometimes it sounds like it's framed through this business networking partner acquisition.
Like to make money.
Yeah, like I've got friends who build me up so that my business can be better. I've got friends who support me so that I can launch deals. I mean, that's like one. That's like coworkers or colleagues. These aren't really like friends. I don't feel much attention is paid to like how do you build long-lasting relationships and friendships, or how do you find like fulfillment and happiness outside of making more money or having more freedom, whatever that means, right? And I agree with you that the message of self-empowerment is good, and I do agree with that. I wish more people go after it, but like this, even with the way that you frame something, like the ability to pick up and move your business. Not everybody's going to be a business owner. Very few people are going to be.
1 minute.
The lockdown happened. I did not get the vaccine. Didn't want the vaccine. Didn't need to see the vaccine. No thank you. So I decided, okay, I had a very open story to go today. I said I had savings. I had financial ability to say I'm going to pick up Florida. So it's not just about you own a business you can pick up. That is an example I use with a lot of lost businesses that didn't have enough financial security. They lost everything. They couldn't move to another state and just start from scratch. It wasn't a cost-efficient option for them. But think about this: if you decide you want to, get out of the cities you feel are too crowded. There's, from my perspective, it's conservative conveniencing. They're too low, whatever. I'm going to buy land in Texas. Okay, financial freedom. There you go. If you want your kids to go to a better school, financial freedom. You pay for that. So, the reality is that money brings peace in many cases. It brings a sense of calm. When there's nothing more stressful in life, there's two things actually. When your health is compromised, and when you can make this. So what I'm saying is they're stealing reality.
You say that, but then you diverge from reality. There's a reason why there's like, more money, more problems, right? Like it's not like having infinite money is a good thing.
I'm not saying it's a key.
I know, but
key to
when you say it's very stressful to not be able to pay your bills, I absolutely agree. I don't need to get into crypto finance to pay my bills, right? Everything you just described, having a good security blanket, there are some bare investments you should always be making. Your IRA should be maxed every year. Your 401k, any company matches you should make every year.
But you're not understanding why they're saying crypto, because there's people who they don't share beliefs that you share about. They don't have confidence in these big banks anymore. So they're saying
go live in a forest. I mean,
they're doing crypto. But why not?
Because most of them are losing money on crypto. The vast majority of people are losers.
Okay.
So if I have an audience of 1,000 people listening to me, I want to preach a message that is hopefully 950 of them, not 5 of them at the expense of the other 995.
Everybody to go do crypto.
We're talking about crypto right now.
I mean, I'm not even involved in crypto personally, to be perfectly honest with you. But that's not the message. Is not everyone.
A lot of it though is related to like e-commerce and crypto finance, and like that's where a lot of these kind of like anti-college like finance bros have come out of. It's like the crypto markets. Like crypto is almost like by its nature of like buying and selling is like it is some kind of zero-sum game in some of these markets where it's like you've got one winner and it's at the expense of 1,000 people that made a bad investment, and you've got like so much scamming, so many rug pulls, different types of like scam coins and shit coins people call them, that anytime somebody's talking about like, oh, it'd be nice to have the financial freedom to do these things, like, okay, that could be accomplished through most decent jobs as long as you're saving money and spending responsibly. You don't have to get lucky and striking rich on crypto in order to do that. Every time I hear somebody recommend like crypto stuff to their audience, you might as well be telling people to buy lottery tickets. Like that might even have a higher winning percentage than telling your whole audience to get invested in crypto.
Okay, so you're focused on right now, one particular issue. We started with Tate. I don't see Andrew Tate telling everyone to go to crypto. crypto. I can go watch some of his, videos. What I see, truthfully, a lot of what got a lot of attention from him is him talking about body count and him talking about men versus women. But if you actually look, what I did is initially, truthfully, heard his commentary and was like, who is this guy? Because I had spent a very long time defending men against, modern feminism and how I believe modern feminism is out to destroy men in many ways, and women, by the way. So I spent a long time defending men. Then I listened to his commentary and I said, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I heard all these short clips. I then did a lot of research and went and listened to long-form content. And what I found is that a lot of what he was talking about had nothing to do with that stuff. It was about self-empowerment. It was about fitness. It was about financial stability. So whether or not he's talking about crypto or not, maybe he made a lot of money through crypto. I have absolutely no idea how he makes his money. But I think the message that rings true for me is money matters. We are in a world where it does matter. It's not your singular path to happiness. I know a lot of rich people who are deeply miserable. Why? What do they eat? Do they spend a lot of time online?
Come on.
Do they have a sense of community? Are they close with their family? Do they get any sunshine? I mean, there's so many factors that go into that. But the message of own your life and you can build success and you can make that look whatever you like, whatever you
They
want.
got good textures.
And why is it threatening? Why is this guy banned?
Well, it's probably not for that messaging, but I guess to summarize the conversation, if I could recommend a lifestyle where a person could earn $120,000 a year, but they keep it balanced, I always say it's sleep, diet, exercise, and social life. If you could earn $120,000 a year and keep those 4 things in balance, you're going to be better off than somebody that's hustling to earn $300,000, $400,000 a year.
I disagree.
I disagree with all my
body
and
I say
soul.
That because 120, well, it depends where you live. What's 120?
No, it doesn't.
Yes,
120,000 is a lot anywhere in the United States, of course.
Go to Manhattan and live on $120,000 a year with a family.
Okay, if you want to go to the very most expensive parts of the most expensive
you said anywhere.
You could find places in Manhattan where you can live for $120,000 a year. You can find apartments right now. You can find studios in Manhattan for $2,000 a month.
Why would you want to live if you have the drive and the ambition and you want things over here that you know would enhance your life, that you feel good about, and you're comfortable?
They're not going to enhance your life. That's the point.
They absolutely will.
They don't, though.
I went from
Come on, guys.
where I am now.
So did I. They absolutely
So,
don't. Having any new electronic device that you bought is gone in a week. You don't care about it in a week. The biggest, the nicest apartments, the nicest views, they get old.
Forget about that. I'm talking about the ability to buy a piece of land. I'm talking about
I want cheap land in Nebraska, Oklahoma,
Iowa,
Montana.
Food that I don't want to go to the grocery store because I think it's not terribly good quality food.
If you want to buy bougie food online from the www.thecoolestfarms.com, you can do that. That's great. If that's your select niche thing, but I mean.
But say somebody does want to buy bougie food.
They can.
And they're like, I want that. That's important to me because I want my grass-fed, grass-finished steak, and
Come on, guys, we got this.
4 hours into it. My family can have that because I believe that's good for all of us. Why the hell not? This is the United States, man.
Yes.
You do it here. Where are you going to do it?
The why not is because people are sacrificing so much of their mental health and their social well-being to do these insane grinds.
That's a generalization.
I think it's true. Most people aren't going to be earning more than $250,000 a year. It's just unrealistic. I think even a quarter.
You said 120 though. That's different.
Sure, but even 120 is going to be good in 99% of the country. And even if we live in Manhattan and West Hollywood,
it's not our job to tell somebody that 120 is good enough.
It is our job. That's what we're doing. We're telling people what we think is good for them. Of course, that's exactly what we're doing.
That's not our job. My job is to tell people build the life you want for yourself. If 120 works for you, great. If 60 works for you, great. If 250 works for you, great. If you need $10 million, get to work. Build the life you want for yourself, and I'm here to support you in that process. That's my job.
Nobody needs $10 million to be happy. If you want to go for it, if you have the capability to do it, if you've got the path in front of you, you feel like you have the talents that drive you, absolutely 100% pursue it. But don't feel like you're a failure if you're earning $50,000, $60,000 a year living in Iowa.
I don't need to college people and worry about how
it's not coddling. It's not coddling.
Come on, you decide you want to go for the $10 million, and I'm not going to coddle you in the process. That's hard work. It's very hard to attain. Maybe you think it's going to bring you happiness. Maybe it won't. That's your journey. Go for it.
I think the coddling is deluding people into thinking that
I'll be the demo man.
Is the next big, millionaire, the next big. I think that's coddling because it's a refusal to accept the reality that you can earn $50,000, $60,000 a year and be a happy person. And if you can't, that's a failure of you as a human being. You have fundamentally failed on the journey of life if you can't be okay with a middle class income and have happiness. If you need more than that, if you need more than that, that is your personal failure.
No, it's not. It's just people want different vacations. People want a bigger home.
Are you religious?
Somewhat, yes.
Where in the Bible do you need vacation? Which one of the Beatitudes? Which one of the Ten Commandments? Which one of the
You're borderline discriminatory against personal preference. So what makes me happy and what makes, for example, we could make a list right now, and I could list 10 things that make me happy, and you could look at my list and say, I don't care about any of that. None of that makes me happy. And you could make a list of 10 things that make you happy, and I could say, I don't want any of that stuff. So this is an individual preference. People come into this world, their families are unique, cultural differences, they grew up in different places, they have individual preferences of what they want their life to look like. I don't care. I am not going to rag on somebody if they decide they need 4 vacations a year. They want their family to go on 4 vacations a year. 1 to visit family here, 1 to visit family there. Fine. I personally don't like to vacation, so I don't need that. That's not something that I would invest my money in. But I will spend money on what you call bougie, what I call actually healthy farm food, because that's an industry that I want to support. So money, bottom line is, money is freedom. We cannot tell somebody you can be happy on 60K. We don't know them. We don't know where they live. We don't know how many people they have to support. We know nothing about what their priorities in life are. And why would I ever want to limit somebody to saying 60K a year or you're doing something wrong? Live the life you want. This is a free society, supposedly. I don't know about that anymore, but...
Okay. I think it's our upbringing. So I think you had a very liberal upbringing. I think I had a very conservative upbringing, so I have a huge mismatch.
I'm born to 2 conservative parents.
Yeah, but you said you grew up in New York. I grew up in Nebraska. I knew people that lived on Ducky and Dude, 2 people we visited, do horseback riding lessons when I was a kid, because they have horses, they let people come over do it for free. These are I bet they never left the state of Nebraska. Maybe they drove
There's nothing wrong with that.
But I knew so many conservative families that grew up like that, and they had their churches, they had their communities, they had their families.
That's how I was raised.
And but that's not, you're telling me we need to push people to get 2 vacations a year, and you got $1 million. Like, I bet these people have never had a new car before. I bet these kids all learned to drive when they were 10 years old. They put a phone book in the truck, and they would drive around on the farm. Right. And these people were super happy their whole lives. None of them probably felt like, oh my God, I don't have the newest iPhone. Oh my goodness, we're going to Disney World this year.
He loved to cook. He was old school Italian. He was like, I don't want that. He sacrificed a lot of finances to make that personal decision. Amen. We got to see a lot of him. Great. I have other people in my family that will work their fingers to the bone to the day they die, and that's what really makes them happy, because they're always in that head of like wanting to do. So what I'm saying is, find what makes you happy and do it. I'm not pushing any of it. I'm not telling you what makes you happy. I'm not going to try to do that. But just know that setting yourself on a path to achieve whatever that is that you believe makes you happy is something that we should be supporting. Whatever that looks like.
As long as that happiness isn't like a dollar amount. I know you mentioned the $500,000 thing, but I guess I've been in a lot of wealthy communities in West Hollywood and LA. I lived in LA for 3 years. I know a lot of wealthy people and a lot of wealthy communities all over the place. And man, and if you've been time, because you've done media stuff, I'm sure you know a lot of these people. They're all on Prozac. They've all got, like all of their friends are backstabbing them constantly. They don't talk to them, or they hate their parents. They have horrible interpersonal relationships with everybody they know. They're estranged from their children. There's like all sorts of stuff. These people have so much money. Now, you mentioned if you would offer $500,000 to any person in a rural community where they say, yeah, give me that money to do it. Sure, the grass is always greener. If you were to go to any of these communities in LA, Beverly Hills, you say, give me 85% of your net worth, and I will cure all of your depression, and I will make all of your relationships whole, they would give the money in a heartbeat. Because what's it doing for them? What do they want? A bigger house, another car?
You think so? You think all these big-time celebrities, if you went up to them and you said, the ones who complain, by the way, about what you're saying, oh, money doesn't buy happiness. Money doesn't buy happiness, by the way, is a saying that is said by people who have money.
That is
100% true. Now, I'm not telling you that money is an exclusive path to happiness. I'm somebody who sits here on the show every day and says, get sunshine, get outside.
Thank you.
Watch what you eat. Don't eat garbage. Exercise, get your endorphins running. My message
nice.
is
Good job, bro.
And I'm not somebody, by the way, I'm not somebody who like lives the grind. I like my work-life balance. That's where I come from personally. That's the kind of family I come from as well. However, if you think that there's poor people on Prozac, there's rich people on Prozac, there's poor people. These are societal problems that go way beyond how much money we have. But those rich people,
oh my God,
celebrities in Hollywood, you know what? You're right. Money doesn't buy happiness. So listen, you can work on all that other stuff.
Focus on the orb.
We're just going to take all of your money. I would like a poll of how many of them hand it over to you, and let's see. Maybe they'll say money doesn't buy happiness, so here's my millions and millions of dollars. I beg to differ. I think they need to work on other areas of their life. I think they probably need to work on their mental health and their physical health and a whole bunch, and their communal health and a whole bunch of other things. But the fact that they have a lot of money, that is not the trigger. There's something else going on there.
If you could reset your life, if you could go back to being 21 years old, and you could keep either everything you've learned or the amount of money you've got, which would you choose?
Why do I have to choose?
Because it's a hypothetical. That's how hypotheticals work. You have to choose one. If you could right now reset your life, a genie comes out of life and says you can be 21 years old again. You can either have the exact same amount of money that you've got right now, and you can be 21 with everything you do at 21, or you can sacrifice all your money and go back to 21 with
That is not what the debate is, though. That's not what the debate is about. Because it's all or nothing. That's ridiculous. Because a lot of times you're getting that experience while you're earning a living. And you're
not always, though. That's the whole point. Because sometimes you have to give up one for the other. If you want to be a doctor, you're saying, I'm going to throw away 10 years of my life to do med school. If you want to be a lawyer, you're going to have to grind through law school. If you want to be a partner, you're going to have to grind through work. There are things in life, for the pursuit of money, that require you to make sacrifices to your personal life, too. But as Americans, we don't quantify our mental health. It's very easy to say, I work X more hours, $5 more dollars. But
I agree with you.
Yeah, sure.
That I can agree with.
Yeah. I like the idea of pushing people to be more, to earn more, and to accomplish more in life. I think that's good. I just sometimes the way that, and I'm sure you've seen it, you said you have a work-life balance, which is good. But have you seen like the Instagram stories of the other guys, hustle culture, like you should wake up at 6 a.m., eat 3 eggs, check your Robinhood account, 6:30 you go to the gym for 2 hours, at 8:30 you're clocking into your job, and then you're checking your crypto account, and then at 9:30 you're like making calls to clients. It's like, Jesus, like, live. Right. You don't want to be 30 years old, like, oh my God, and I've earned like $500,000 in 30 years. What did you do with your 20s? I hustled.
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, I think there's nuance to that conversation. Like I said, I'm always talking about health. One of the things I'm always talking about is sleep. You need to sleep, right? So sleep deprivation is a serious problem now. For sure. And if you get older and you look back on your life and you've slept 4 to 5 hours every night, you are going to be more prone to several chronic
dementia,
all of those things. So I talk about that all the time. So I think we can agree on a little bit of the nuance there. I want to talk about college. Let's talk about college. Yeah. You did a conversation. I pulled this one. You had a conversation with Sneeko, I think it is. This is at 1636, Tyler. So we skipped one. We skipped miserable one. We covered that.
Oh, miserable. They're all going after money. They didn't learn the ability to do that. Miserable. All right, we'll go back.
Orange.
Living in a nice city, and they're like, oh my God, I have no relationships, no friends. No, we can do college. We can do college. Because college will...
It'll roll back in. Let's do college, and then I can tell Stephen why he's wrong about money. So. Let's go.
Saw you on Adams 22. You're like, go to college.
Yeah, college is super reliable place to build your...
It's a scam. College is a giant scam. Most of these majors are a waste of time now. You have to pay a year to a lot of these schools.
Why do people pay the money?
Because it's an illusion to make them feel like they're productive and they're doing something when in reality they don't know what they want to do. They're just in there taking up loans and then they end up at 40 with a bunch
all of societies, they don't end up with debt. They end up out-earning people with high school degrees by about $1 million over the end of their lifetime. There's a reason why people pay so much for degrees. It's because they tend to pay for themselves.
You're telling me you don't know a lot of people in your generation that have to pay so much money off in student loans?
I know more people that went broke on crypto than I know people that wasted money on a STEM degree.
Okay, but why are you advocating for the grind of college, but not advocating for making money?
Because college is a reliable path that if you get on the path and you put in the work, there's a guaranteed reward at the end. It's not a competition with other people. Competition
is a reliable path. What did you go to college?
Kind of.
Kind of. So you didn't even you dropped out, and you're telling people to go to college?
Yeah, because I'm a 1 in a million. What I did was incredibly rare. Like, what do you mean?
Okay, so this is an interesting topic for me because I taught college for a year. I actually got a master's degree. I got my BA. So I got my BA in Spanish and marketing. I thought I was going to go and do something in the business field, and that learning a second language would be an asset. I got a scholarship to go do an MA at Columbia in Spanish, and I said, "Oh, this will be great. I'll perfect, my Spanish. Fantastic." Hated it, loathed it. Came out. I taught college for a year, and then I went and I taught at a private school in Manhattan, grades 7 through 12. I was a dean there, basically an advisor doing a whole bunch of stuff. I also taught in a Catholic school. So I've had a pretty extensive experience teaching. I'm somebody who tells people, this is my advice. You mentioned STEM here. That is very different than a liberal arts degree. So you're talking about specialized use. I'm guessing that you mentioned STEM because that is more specified.
I mentioned STEM because I don't want to go through the argument of because technically people that get philosophy degrees, English and history degrees, one, English and history is important to society, and the degradation of these series, like, oh, we don't care about arts or any of that. That's all silly. We only care about is silly. But I didn't want to have that argument with him at that particular point in time.
Okay, can we have it? Can we have that discussion now?
If you'd like to, sure.
I would love to, because I had that degree, and what happened to me was I graduated from, and let me tell you my story. I don't know if it'll help you or not, but I graduated from college. I had a 4.0. I worked my butt off. I loved it. I loved studying. I was a professional student. I went to Columbia. I graduated with all honors. I come out and I go to get a job. And do you know what I knew how to do? Nothing. I had no practical skills. None. Knew how to do nothing. Seriously, I went to go get a job at an insurance company, and I was like, what am I going to do? I don't have any practical skills. I could think. I could talk. I could do all of that stuff, but I didn't have any practical skills for the workforce. So I wandered around and meandered around and all that stuff. So here's how I feel about college. If you're going for something specified, say you want to be an engineer, something very specific, where you're going to go, you're going to study, you're going to acquire a certain skill set, you're going to come out, you're going to be marketable in an industry, you're going to have skills available to work on day one. I know how to do X, Y, and Z, practical skills, great. If you're going to go and you're just going to float around and you're going to take gender studies and you're going to, take some literature classes and you're going to largely socialize, because that's what college has become, and by the way, get indoctrinated, which is happening in colleges all across America. So you come out thinking one way and not free thinking for yourself. All of that happens. You come out and you have no practical skills. How is that helpful? Is it not more helpful for someone to sign on for an online program and learn how to actually do something? Or I'm not saying do nothing, but I'm saying there are alternatives now to a 4-year degree that are specialized, that are practical, so that somebody comes out and knows how to do something, as opposed to just, I'm smart, I went to college, what do you know how to do? I don't know.
If you go to college and you don't do a single internship, you don't get a single job, you don't do anything, I mean, you've wasted the experience. I mean, I can point to, if you want to say that that's going to be the archetype of the college student you want to hold up, then fine. Then I'll say, if you don't go to college and you just meander around, you work but then you get a job at McDonald's, then you become a McDonald's supervisor, and then you go work at Burger King. Well, you've also worked right? I'm not going to compare the high-driven guy that doesn't go to college and does all the certifications on his own, all the workshops on his own, gets a huge job, and by 22, and then compare that to like a college student that does nothing. That's not an equal comparison,
but forget about it. I had a 4.0. I worked my butt off.
I don't know what your college can you speak Spanish?
But there's plenty of people. Sure, of course I can.
And you're Miami, so that's good. There you go. That's a good skill you picked up.
But what was that going to do if I wanted to be a Spanish teacher?
Great. I can't go on your personal experience.
Okay, so
I don't know. But
general.
This is something that I would beg conservatives to have to stop attacking liberal arts, because I'm tired on my stream of debating how many new black, trans, women characters are in the next TV show, okay? Conservatives have suicided themselves on the culture war because they refuse to engage in the things that matter culturally. And when you say things things like liberal arts are important, things like entertainment, things like music, all these things are really important things. And when conservatives say, do STEM, don't do that, that's for losers, English is for losers, history is for losers, and you turn around and like, oh my God, CRT, that's horrible. Well, how do you expect, what else would CRT be besides something written by the most progressive and crazy people? Because all the conservatives are driven to only do engineering and technology, right? I want there to be a conservative that is studying gender studies. I want that to happen, so that when people are saying things like, I think any gender can be anything, and our pronouns should be she, sir, I want a conservative there saying, you know what, I think it's good to push on some gender things, but that's a little bit fucking insane. I think that'd be good. But when conservatives push for education to look a certain way, I think that some of it starts to become self-fulfilling, to where conservatives will say, I think the institutions are becoming a little bit ideologically driven. Stay away from the liberal arts. I think that college in general is becoming more ideologically driven. We need to kind of like do private schools and stay out of there. Well, what's happening to the schools? They're becoming more and more ideologically driven as conservatives refuse to engage with them. And then those people are growing up. They're joining the administration and the staff, and now they're becoming even more left-leaning. And then conservatives are like, oh my God, look at all these liberal institutions. Look at how far left they are. And I grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh telling me constantly that this is what colleges were going to become, and kind of like mail-in ballots for Trump. It almost became a form of self-fulfilling prophecy, in my opinion.
But colleges have been like that. I mean, I went to college 20 years ago, and it was already like that. It was already all liberal all the time. I mean, conservatives, it sounds great. It sounds like a utopia. Conservatives go into a gender, gender studies class, and they talk about pronouns, and everyone has a great civil discussion, and everyone disagrees. That's not what happens to conservatives on college campuses. They get shut down.
Of course.
They get put in the corner. Conservative can't even go to speak. I mean, Tommy Lauren, whether you agree with her or not, can't even go to speak on a college campus without getting shut down, harassed, and they have to call in security. That's a huge problem. Why would a conservative parent want to send their child to an institution of supposedly higher learning where they're going to learn how to be a free-thinking person for them to either get indoctrinated or punished? Ridiculous. I would never. I hope that my child, I have a son, amazing kid, smart kid, great. What I want for him more than anything is for him, once he figures out what he wants to do in life, I would love for him to get some practical skills in that area. I don't need him to go to college for 4 years to learn how not to think, to be indoctrinated, for me to spend a fortune, for him to come to party and drink and do whatever he's going to do, and to come out and not know how to do anything. If he comes to me and he says, hey, listen, Mom, I want to do X, Y, and Z, and there's a program for this, and I can do it in 2 years, and I'm going to come out, and I'm going to be able to do this, and it's going to be really awesome, and that's what I want to do. Amazing. Let's do it. So conservatives aren't here saying, oh, humanities is a joke, and we don't care about English.
They do say that, but...
I mean, that's just what they're saying is that if you're going to invest money in something, there should be a return on that investment. And that means that you should have a productive, free-thinking child at the end of that comes out and is in a better position than they were before they went in. That's not what's happening in college. If I were hiring someone for a position today, I would much rather hire someone who did not go to college. Why?
No shot.
100%.
Absolutely
and I do it all the time. And the reason is that the people who go to college go through 4 years, and every single one of them talks and thinks and acts like a robot 9 out of 10
That's
times.
just, if I'm hiring somebody, and I've got 2 equivalent candidates in front of me, and I've got a guy that was able to get his 4-year degree, that speaks volumes. I know that you can be on time. I know that you can show up every day and do what's assigned to you. I know that you have the ability to finish something. That's a hugely important thing versus somebody that shows up with no degree. If you don't have a degree, and you can make it without a degree, but you need a damn good portfolio to do that. And that is true advice for anybody working in any field. If you think you can show up,
it's on its way out.
It's absolutely, if it's on its way out, it's only because people are wanting more and more and more education. The college degree is the #1 grower of wealth inequality in the United States because people with college degrees are out-earning everybody else so much.
Watch what happens in the next 10 years.
It's becoming more of a... It's only trended in one direction, where the degrees are becoming more and more important. It's so important, even other conservative-esque people, like Jordan Peterson, talk about, like, how do we have a society where it functions when the IQ requirements for performing well in society are getting higher and higher and higher and higher, where the types of work that we have, the specialization required, the training required is getting higher and higher and higher, to where having that 4-year degree is, from my days, the equivalent to it used to be having a GED or high school degree, where, like, if you didn't have high school in the 80s or 90s, like, well, man, what are you? You're a loser. Well, now, you know, the numbers don't lie. I mean, like, you can look at it. What I'm telling you is that it is changing, and that it's becoming more and more of a requirement.
We're talking about IQ as if college is an indicator of your IQ.
You don't think IQ correlates to intelligence?
People I talk to every day who are entrepreneurs who didn't go to college or spent their college years doing nothing or wasted their college years or have that 4-year degree but partied and joked around all the time, and you'll talk to them and they'll say, I have friends who didn't go to college at all but was motivated and was focused. I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not saying don't do anything. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, as an alternative to a 4-year degree for everyone, and some people may thrive in college. Like I said, you go to school for engineering, you go to school for a specialized subject, you go to school for someone where there's going to be an obvious reward to that program. Fine. I'm not telling people, everyone, this is a blanket recipe for you. However, out there who are going to want to do something otherwise that does not fit in with a bracket. That doesn't mean that they're not going to work hard. That doesn't mean that they're not going to develop a skill set. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be marketable to an entrepreneur just because they don't have a 4-year degree. That way of thinking is going to be antiquated.
I'll if you want to do a time frame and a $20 bet, I'll bet you what. It's the easiest money I've ever made. Okay, $20, 5 years, whatever you want. We'll do another episode if we're still live.
But Steven, look at what happened. Honestly, look at one of the reasons that we just went through, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, last couple of years, and you saw what happened on college campuses. Look at what happened. I mean, they locked kids down in their dorm rooms in many schools. They now are, instituting, I don't know how you feel about mandates. I strongly oppose the mandates, but they're instituting that on college campuses. You have parents all over the place that are watching this stuff and saying, what am I paying for?
I am 33 years old. I went through a phase when I was 15 where my parents did a certain thing, and I didn't like that thing, and I wanted to do the exact opposite of everything. Mm-hmm. At some point, we have to grow out of that. I can look at college campuses, and I've argued a lot of stuff. I think that I just went to the University of Texas in Austin and A&M, and I just did a Change My Mind event where I argued that wokeism is going way too far across most college campuses. I'm not going to disagree with it. That's absolutely true. People were writing, school administrators were writing if people needed
that wasn't even my fault.
Okay,
or the Trump win.
Yeah, it was unbelievably cringe. But I can't let that one thing that I don't like poison my mind against seeing all of the other things that do in college. If you have people that are capable of doing things outside of college, this is the advice that I give somebody. If somebody asks me, if they go, do you think I should go to college? And I go, if you have to ask me, the answer is probably yes. Because the type of people that are driven enough, like when you talk about people that didn't go to college or that are entrepreneurs, they're not going to college because they did really bad in math and English and school's just not for them. They're not going to college because they're so busy with the path they're on in life. What they've got already, they don't have time for it. Right? They have direction 19, 20. Yeah, they're already working with their parents' business. They're already have learned a trade, through their teen years because friends or dad or friends.
Guys, are you serious?
Already,
come on.
Contributing to projects online. They're coding, they're programming 19, 20, 21. Right. And by the time these people
Jesus Christ.
these are
boys.
These are the people that they would come to me, hey, can I work on your website? Can I do it? I go, oh, well, what have you done? I go, this is what I've done. Yeah, obviously you can work on my stuff. But a lot of people that don't go to college aren't like that. And it's a bit, it's, I don't want to say delusional because that's too harsh, but this idea that like all these people don't go to college because they're so busy for